Rachel had always been a proud mother, known for her sharp tongue and high standards. She had met her husband Mike in a village, and their whirlwind romance had swept them off their feet. They had built a beautiful life together with a cozy home and 2 adorable children. However, over the years, Rachel's pride had begun to consume her. She constantly criticized Mike, belittling his accomplishments and making him feel inadequate. Despite his efforts to please her, Rachel's dissatisfaction grew and her words cut deeper. One fateful day, a young orphan named Sophia entered their lives. Mike, moved by her story, decided to mentor her. Rachel was livid, feeling that their resources should only go towards their own children. Sophia is just a charity case. Rachel snapped. Why waste our time on someone who's never even family? Mike tried to reason with Rachel, explaining that Sophia's situation was desperate, but Rachel wouldn't budge. As the days passed, Mike found himself drawn to Sophia's kindness and gratitude. He began to see the world through her eyes, realizing that love and compassion knew no boundaries. Meanwhile, Rachel's behavior towards Mike continued to deteriorate. Her harsh words and actions pushed him further away. One evening, as Mike was helping Sophia with her homework, Rachel stormed into the room. "What's going on here?" Rachel demanded, her voice dripping with venom. Mike looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. "Rachel, I have been thinking. Perhaps it's time for me to reevaluate our priorities," Mike said gently. Rachel's face twisted in anger, but Mike continued. "I have been feeling suffocated by our relationship. I need space to breathe, to rediscover myself." Rachel's world began to crumble, but she refused to see the damage her own actions had caused. As the days turned into weeks, Mike and Sophia grew closer. They spent hours talking, laughing and exploring the world together. Rachel, on the other hand, was left alone. Her pride and anger consumed her. As Mike and Sophia's bond grew stronger, Rachel became increasingly isolated. She couldn't understand why Mike was spending so much time with this charity case. Her anger and resentment simmered, waiting to boil over. One evening, as Mike was leaving for Sophia's birthday celebration, Rachel confronted him. "You are really choosing her over me, aren't you?" Rachel spat, her eyes blazing. Mike sighed, his expression wary. "I am not choosing anyone, Rachel. I'm just trying to make a difference in Sophia's life. You are the one pushing me away." Rachel's face twisted in rage. "You are just feeling guilty because you have failed me," she knowed. Mike's eyes filled with sadness. "I have never failed you, Rachel. You have failed us. Your pride and anger have destroyed our relationship. Rachel's world crumbled. Rachel's world crumbled further, but she refused to acknowledge her role in the destruction. As Mike walked out of the door, Rachel realized she was losing him. She tried to call him to apologize, but Mike didn't answer. Sophia's birthday celebration was a joyous affair, filled with laughter and warmth. Mike felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. As they celebrated, Sophia turned to Mike with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for being my family, Mike," she whispered. Mike's heart swelled with emotion. "You are my family too, Sophia," he replied. Rachel watched from afar, her heart heavy with regret. She realized too late that her pride had cost her the love of her life. Days turned into weeks and Mike's visit to Sophia became more frequent. Rachel's isolation deepened, her anger and resentment festering. One day, Mike arrived at the house, his expression resolute. "Rachel, I have made a decision," he said gently. "I'm going to file for divorce." Rachel's world shattered. "You can't leave me," she begged, tears streaming down her face. Mike's eyes filled with compassion. "I'm not leaving you, Rachel. I am leaving the toxic relationship we created." Rachel collapsed, her pride finally broken. As Mike walked away, Rachel realized she had lost the love of her life to an orphan, not because Sophia was more deserving, but because Rachel's own pride had destroyed their relationship. But was it too late for Rachel to change? Could she learn to let go of her pride and rebuild her life? Rachel's world had shattered, but she knew she had to pick up the pieces. She began attending therapy sessions, determined to understand the damage her pride had caused. Her therapist, Dr. Thompson, was kind but firm. "Rachel, your pride has been your shield for far too long," Dr. Thompson said. "It's time to let go and confront the pain beneath." Rachel nodded, tears streaming down her eyes. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Dr. Thompson smiled. "You can, Rachel. You just need to take the first step." Rachel took a deep breath and began her journey to self-discovery. She started volunteering at a local soup kitchen, helping those in need. Slowly, her heart began to heal. Meanwhile, Mike and Sophia's bond continued to grow. They moved into a cozy little house, filled with laughter and warmth. Sophia thrived under Mike's care, her grades improving dramatically. She began to see a future beyond her wildest dreams. Mike smiled as he watched Sophia blossom. "I'm so proud of you," he said, hugging her tight. Sophia's eyes shone with tears. "Thank you, Mike. You have given me a home." As the months passed, Rachel's transformation was remarkable. She lost weight, her eyes, her hair regained its luster, and her smile returned. But just as Rachel was finding her footing, Mike filed for divorce. The papers arrived at her doorstep, a harsh reminder of her failure. Rachel crumbled to the floor, tears streaming down her face. How could Mike do this to me? But deep down, Rachel knew she had only herself to blame. As they signed the divorce papers, Rachel realized she had lost not only Mike, but also her sense of self. What would she do now? Would Mike and Sophia's relationship last?